Town of Winslow, Maine, Town Council meeting, Monday, June 14th, 2021 at 6 p.m. First order of business tonight is a public hearing on an ordinance 7-2021, Town Council, an ordinance providing for adoption of a solid waste ordinance in the Town of Winslow. Be it ordained by the Council of the Town of Winslow as follows. The Town of Winslow provides household garbage collection to all homeowners as part of the annual property tax commitment. And private haulers operate within the Town of Winslow, both under contract to the town and contracting privately with residents and businesses. And the town has no solid waste ordinance regulating the collection, disposal, and hauling of waste. Now, therefore, being enacted by the Town Council, and that's the ordinance. Ordinance number 7-2001 to be effective as of September 1st, 2021. And we'll have discussion, obviously. This is a public hearing portion of it. Is there any comment from the public at this time?
I checked before the meeting too, there's none.
Right, and Jim York was supposed to be joining us. I had provided him the link, but he is not on.
Okay, so he's not on now, so maybe later if he comes on, let us.
Potentially, yeah, I'll be looking for him.
Okay. And now we'll call the regular meeting. Lisa, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, you can. Peter Drapo,
Hi, yes.
Ben Twitchell,
Yes.
Jerry Cleary.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Here, recite the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I have a motion to approval of minutes of previous May 12th, May 17th, and May 18th, 2021? Jeff, and then I believe it was Jerry seconded?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yep, and I don't think that's a roll call, is it?
It is not.
Is it? Any discussion? If there's no discussion, show of hands, please, approval. Thank you very much. Communications? Any communications? Reports of committee and commissions, the town manager's report.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Chairman Karen and members of the council. Another month's gone by. It's kind of hard to believe it has so far, but time's flying by. As everyone knows, we are open to the public at this point. The only requirement we still have for masking is with members of the public coming into the front office. Reason being, we still have employees that are not fully vaxxed, and we have young children who cannot be vaccinated that often come in with families. That said, however, things have been trending downward still. So the environment seems pretty confident that we're in good shape. July 1st, we plan to do away with the requirements altogether, as has the governor following her lead. And we will be opening the July meetings back up to public attendance in this facility right here. So, in other news, at the end of the month, actually this week, it's not next week anymore. This week we're going to be losing our beloved clerk, Lisa Gillum, for 6 to 8 weeks, having surgery. So we are going to be a little bit behind the 8 ball. Tanya's going to be very busy. I will be picking up as I can to help out, as will Audra, and Bet has also said that she would help. So it's going to be a little bit tight, but we'll keep the fort held down for you while you're gone, and we wish you all the best.
Thank
And
you.
hope this resolves everything for your back and you come back healthy and
Taller.
taller. Maybe that'd be nice, right?
Taller would be awesome.
I think we'll realize how much we're really gonna miss you too, and how much you really do around here.
Yeah, I'm gonna miss
so.
everybody here too. I'll be out for July. Possibly I'll miss the August meeting, but I'm not positive, depending on how the recovery goes. But yeah, Tanya, I'm looking, I know that she's got a lot on her plate, and that will be extra for Erica, and everybody else. So thank you to everybody that's gonna be pitching in, I appreciate it.
And you know how much we appreciate the work you've done the last 2 years with the COVID and the elections and doing everything, and we hope you're a speedy recovery and get back. That's for
Thank
sure.
you.
Thank you.
Good luck, Lisa.
Thank you, Ben. Rocky's already offered to bring me big G's if I need it, so. So I said yes.
Well, we'll be thinking of you, so
Thank you.
I'll send you good thoughts. To that end, I also want to announce that one positive thing we have happening in Lisa's absence is that we will have a summer intern. It's an unpaid internship. She is an IT student who is focusing in cybersecurity, but I brought her on when she reached out to see if we had anything to help with the website launch, because Lisa, of course, is a key player in that, but without her here, I really need somebody else to help with that. So we'll have, her name is Kim Sollett. She's not a young student. She's going back to school a little later in her years, so we're not going to have a young intern in her. But when you meet Kim, she's a little quiet. She's very nice, and we are looking forward to having her here to help out and get that project off the ground.
Where is she going to school?
She's going to school at UMA. So that will help us all out. I also wanted to say congratulations to our two newest promotions in the police department. On June 2nd, we had a promotion ceremony for Lieutenant Hubert, and he has moved up to lieutenant as of, actually, he was brought up a little bit earlier than that, and now he's, but we didn't have the ceremony until we promoted the sergeant. Sergeant is Alex Jones. Both of these gentlemen have worked very hard. They did a stellar job in their interviews, in their testing, and it was actually a pretty hard choice for the chief, and I know he did the process right and really put everybody through the steps and made sure that we got the best candidates. So congratulations to those two gentlemen. We're very lucky to have them here in Winslow. I think that's the high points of what I had on my report. Reserve the right to recall
Okay,
that.
no problem. No problem whatsoever. Department reports. Any department heads would care to speak at this point in time? Totally voluntary. If there's any on via Zoom.
How, one of the questions is, how are we doing on sewer and water on Benton Avenue?
I'll let Paul give the update on that.
Hi, good evening. I think things are going somewhat smoothly. Water is doing well. Sewer, we keep running into a few obstacles that nobody knows are there. This morning we found a box culvert crossing Benton Avenue across one of the old Margaret's or Scott Paper parking lots, about 8 feet in the ground. So we had to do a little bit of refiguring for that. So that's been holding up the contractor a little bit, but I think we got it figured out. So other than that, they've been doing well. It's always challenging, you know, no matter what we put on the plan. There's a lot of stuff that's buried that nobody knows is there. So I think they're doing all right. They'll be done on time, and I have no problem with that.
Paul, can you give us a little update on the scope of the municipal building parking lot upgrade and the time frame on that?
Right now, that's probably going to be sometime in July, late July. I want to get the South Reynolds Road ready for paving. Pike is coming in on the Bassett Road at the end of this week to reclaim that one, so I'd like to get those ready for them. And I'd like to get Ranger out of that part of Benton Avenue before we go tackle the town office, so we're not all fighting for the same real estate. I want to make sure that they're done in that area so that we can get in there. And I'm assuming probably the middle to end of July we'll get in there. And there's probably about a month's work. It's going to be interesting because we got to keep everybody open. We got to keep town office open. We got to keep employee parking available. The police department needs to have access, so it's going to be a little interesting unless we want to send everybody home for a couple of weeks. But I don't think that's going to be realistic. So that's about where we are right now with that, Ray.
Okay. Anybody, any other questions for Paul, Jerry? Or?
Well, I got a complaint, not for public work, but uh, access to the town office during election. They couldn't get in, and they didn't bother. They just went by. It was basically blocked.
So there was always one entrance open. We made sure one entrance was open. Sometimes it was the out, sometimes it was the in, but they didn't try very hard to get in because it was open.
Well, I don't know. I'm just passing it on, not blaming anybody.
No, I just made sure that at least one entrance was open. I spoke to the contractor multiple times during the day and the day before, so, and I was in and out a couple times, so
Yeah.
it was open. And it looked open, but it was.
Any other questions for any of the department heads?
How's the fire department hiring process going?
Chief, are you there? There we go.
Yes, good evening. It took me a few minutes to push a few buttons. We had we've done the resume review, we've done the initial civil service exam, and we had 4 individuals that tested on Saturday.
Awesome.
Any other questions for any of the department heads?
Yeah, Ronnie, did any of the students that we had going for paramedics make it through?
Yes, sir, one made it through, and unfortunately, he's one of the ones that left.
Do we have any on board now?
Yes, we have one on board. I'm not at liberty to discuss applicants right now, but we did have one of our applicants that went through the testing process that is a paramedic.
I got one other question, Ronnie. On the ambulance service, when you transport, the people are billed to their insurance company, and then they're sent a due notice for what they owe. Am I correct?
It depends on, yes, sir, you're correct. It depends on the level of insurance coverage that they have, that the individual would have. They are, everybody by law, we have to send the bill to everybody.
Or what is the collection agency also sends last notice that they're gonna turn it over to a collection agency, from what I'm understanding.
That is not what we do. So I don't know what information so to refer to our third-party billing as a collection agency is not, that's kind of a misnomer, really. They are our third-party billing company. And typically when, and it has happened in the past, I've received phone calls from, and we between the council and myself and the town manager, we worked out the logistics of how we would handle billing. And anybody that has a hardship, I made it very clear that those that have hardships, we would not be sending to collections. I have never sent any resident to collections at all. That's not what we're about. I've maintained all along that the priority is getting people the care they need, and I don't want anybody to hesitate calling 911 because they have a fear of how they're going to pay for it. That's not what this is about, and we have never done anything like that.
That was my understanding in the beginning, Ronnie, so I just wanted to verify that again.
Yes, sir. No, I haven't changed, haven't wavered, and will not change. And if there is anybody that has an issue, I would invite them to please call me, and we will take care of them, because that's what we're here for, is to take care of them.
Thank you very much, Ronnie. Any questions, any further questions for
Yeah, I got
Ronnie?
one.
Go ahead.
You say hardship, and what's the definition of hardship for our ambulance service?
The definition that I have for somebody that claims a hardship, is that your question?
Yes.
There were if somebody tells me that they can't pay the bill, I'm not gonna request a financial statement from them or anything. I take them at their word.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you, Romney.
Thank you very much,
sir.
Chief.
sir.
Appreciate it very much. If I could have a motion, if there's no other further questions, if I had a motion
So move.
for reports accepting. Jerry, seconded by Ben. I think that's just a show of hands too.
It is.
If I could show of hands, please. All set, thank you very much. Public comment, was there any public comment tonight's meeting, Erica?
We did not receive any public comments, and the gentleman who wanted to be in the public hearing has still not shown up.
Okay,
so.
okay. Moving on then to table business, there's ordinance number 7-2020 and ordinance number 3-2021.
Make a motion to leave them table,
Both of them together
unless
leaving
there's
table?
anything new on them.
Point of order.
Yep, go ahead.
We actually don't need to move anything as far as keeping them tabled. The action would be, the movement would be to pull them off the
Okay.
table. If no one makes a movement to pull them off the table, they remain on the table automatically.
Okay. So ordinance number 7 and ordinance number 3-2021 will remain tabled at this time. There are no old business for tonight's meeting. New business, starting with ordinance number 7-2021, providing for adoption of solid waste ordinance in the town of Winslow.
So moved.
So moved by Jeff,
Second.
seconded by Rocky. Discussion. Go ahead, Peter.
I talked with Jeff about this and then after Erica, but I was of the opinion that if we put this into effect immediately, I think we'd be creating a little bit of a problem for the landlords in town. Erica came up with an idea, if we choose to put this into place, make it come into effect the first of the year. I would be more in favor of that than putting it into place immediately, whereas the landlords are going to have a tax increase on their buildings and real estate. And, you know, by them having to be responsible for solid waste as well, all at the same time, I think is a little bit of more of a hardship, so
Yep.
that would be my only concern,
Okay,
okay?
okay. Any other further discussion on it? I think Jeff, you sponsored this. I
Yes.
think one of the major changes is that, and, you know, reading it through a couple times, would be that any apartments with 3 or
Four or more.
4 or more, okay, 4 or more would be responsible for municipal waste pickup at that point in time for private hauler, some bin that the residents of those facilities would put their trash into.
And along with businesses as well, right, Jeff?
Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
because there are
business-
still a handful of businesses in town in which we
Yep.
pick up their rubbish.
Yep, yep, yep.
So, what we have here right now to become effective as of September 1, 2021.
We'd have to amend it.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna do.
And that's open for discussion. I'm in favor of this.
If make the amendment.
Okay. How do I go? Do I make, do
Well,
we
you
want
could-
to, do we want
Yeah,
to
we
discuss this
can-
more before we make the amendment?
That would be up to you all. but
Because
the
we
motion
can make
would
an
be to
amendment and
amend
then
and
keep it
discuss it.
open for
Amend.
discussion if you want to. If you want to
Okay.
make that amendment, we can.
Yeah.
If you want to
Yeah,
discuss it
make
and
the
maybe
amendment.
make
Are you
further
okay with
amendments.
that?
Absolutely.
Because it's your.
No,
okay.
absolutely.
Okay, I'll make an amendment that we would, if we vote to instill this, that we make it effective the first of the year.
Okay, and I think I had asked at some point in time in the past, how many apartments this would affect, and
I checked into that originally before I even put this
Yep.
out there, and we're looking at 40 to 45. Bet wasn't 100% sure.
41, I think, was the number I got.
Yeah, it was right, it was in that range.
individual households, you mean, or?
No.
Or
No.
businesses, right?
No, four unit or more apartment buildings.
Yep,
There's only 40 within the town.
okay, okay.
40, 41, something like that.
Okay,
And I think some are already using their own.
And some already do.
I plow a few that have dumpsters, so
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some out there that. that's
I think
more
like Halifax Commons, they have dumpsters, don't
Yeah.
they?
Some smaller
No.
ones do too, so.
To clarify this, for instance, the condos over on the Roderick Road, those are individually owned in those
Right.
single-family dwellings.
Okay.
Okay, so that.
Yeah, condos wouldn't play because they all pay,
They all have a property tax bill.
right.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. We're talking businesses.
Multi-tenement buildings and businesses.
Okay,
Because Marvell Terrace those are condos too, they're
Right.
individually owned, so.
They wouldn't be
we wouldn't
affected.
check those.
Go ahead.
Businesses.
It also includes trailer parks,
Hmm.
because trailer parks, you pay lot rent, you do not pay property taxes, so the property owner is the trailer park.
correct.
So they would also be affected by
Yeah.
this.
Which is acceptable.
Okay.
Do you have a question, Lee?
I was just asking Jeff, how many, in that list, he said there was approximately 40 to 45 dwellings, but I was curious to know how many small businesses would be removed off the rubbish roads.
Because if they're home businesses, then that doesn't come into play, so.
Right.
Unless they
Yeah.
generate.
But I mean, if they have a
enormous amount of
storefront
trash.
sign and,
No, absolutely.
Go ahead, Erica.
Actually, the way the ordinance is written, they would need to separate their business from their
Yeah.
residence. So if you had a business running out of your home, yes, you could be affected. It's probably only going to affect somebody who really advertises that they've got something in their home, like I'm a CPA or something like that. Again, that's gonna be something that we would have to work out how they determine who gets collected and who doesn't with the hauler. We'd have to make sure that we have very specific instruction out there. But yes, the way the ordinance is written, it could affect you. So if you were running, say, if you had an auto body shop in your garage and you had your home, the body shop trash would fall under this ordinance as not being collectible, but your home refuse would be fine,
in other words, an honor system with the
for
property.
the most part.
Yeah.
Will we be sending notices to the affected businesses and apartment dwellings that are affected by this?
If I can get an accurate list, absolutely.
Okay.
I know Judy was having a little bit of trouble pulling that list for me, but she is working on it.
And I think, we have the first reading tonight. Would it be possible to get them out before, a week before the next reading, a month from now, so that they could at least have some input into, or
We can certainly make that attempt, yes.
can make it a time? I
Yep.
think that, what does the council think? You think that we should try to make that effort?
Yeah.
Yes.
If we can't, for instance, if we don't have it for the July meeting, or Judy can't put that together, we can table it and then go to the August. Because if we're gonna make this effective the first of the year, that still gives them, 4 months.
Right,
5
right.
months.
And if they do have a comment, they can do it in the public
Yeah.
comment section of the meeting, not the public hearing portion of the
Right.
meeting, or they can get with Erica or Paul and that type of,
We still need to amend it tonight, right?
yes, we do.
I need a second for that.
Second,
Thank you.
Do you want Sarah being enacted to the town council of Winslow to adopt ordinance 7 -2021 be effective as of January 1st, 2022?
yep.
No, January 2nd. First is a holiday.
That's
Jan-
okay.
January 2nd, 2021.
22.
22, sorry. Any discussion on the amended? So we're voting just on the amendment at this point in time? So can I have a roll call vote, Lisa, on the amended?
Yes.
-7-2021, please?
Peter Drapo,
Yes?
Ben Twitchell,
Yes.
Jerry Querian,
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Now the amended, if there's no further discussion on ordinance number 7-2021 amended, is there any further discussion? If there is no further discussion, can I have a roll call vote, please, on ordinance number 7-2021?
Yes. Peter Drapo.
Yes.
Ben Twitchell,
Yes.
Jerry Clarion,
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan,
Yes.
and Ray Karen.
Yes.
7-0.
Order number 22-2021, providing for the authorization for the town manager to enter into an agreement with Dude Solutions to procure an asset management system for the town's roads, sewer facilities, and vehicles.
So moved.
Jeff first, second by Lee. And open for discussion. I know we had a discussion, Erica, a little while ago about what some of the pros would be of this system. I wonder if we
Right.
can go over that just quickly.
I think the best example of why we need something like this is what Paul just brought up with the Benton Avenue sewer project. We don't have any kind of system that maps out all of our assets, that keeps track of the maintenance on all of our assets. Everything's kind of kept on individual spreadsheets, notes. Everybody's kind of keeping their own thing. What an asset management system allows us to do is, one, we can GIS mark every single asset we have, not just underground sewer parts and pieces and structures, but also everywhere where we have stop signs, everywhere where we have speed limit signs, everywhere where we have utility poles. We can mark everything in the system, put it on a GIS map, and overlay it so we can see everything that's in a particular area. When you start looking at that type of data, you can start seeing where you're focusing a lot of your work, because our employees will be able to, right in the field, or when they come in at the end of the day, be able to document what they've done at any particular location. And that will go into that system, and it's kept track of. Now, Paul does have a video system for the sewer lines, which does some of the mapping, but we'll be able to import that into this system so we can have a broader look at everything that's going on in a particular location. For instance, if we're having a lot of complaints about potholes in a particular area, and we overlay that on a map, we can see that we've got a significant number, for instance, and this is not factual data, I'm just throwing it out there, say at the intersection of China Road and Bay Street. And then we may also see on that same overlay that we also have a significant number of sewer issues in that same location, or drainage issues, which may be leading to those pavement issues. So it's kind of a way for us to document the work that we're doing, track how we're doing, track the maintenance. We can also do the same thing. Facilities is a big issue for me. Right now, we don't really have good data on when our major maintenance is done, when it's due. And we have no way to really forecast right now, other than hiring somebody to do it, to say it's time to look at renovations or it's time to look at building new, which one is more cost effective. A system like this is designed to also help us make those kind of forecasts. And the last thing that is extremely beneficial that we'll be able to do with this is it has a public interface that we can put on our website that acts as a work order system. So if people are calling in complaints about a pothole somewhere or a sign down, that can actually be logged directly on the website and be routed to the person that would be responsible for that. We could also do the same thing with permitting issues through code or code violations. Those types of things can all be logged automatically and put in as a work order and passed through. So there's a lot of advantages to this. When I go back to how it pays for itself, we just had a change order for the Benton Avenue project. Our contractor has spent an additional $18,000 based on not having good data about what was under the road, whether that be the structures themselves or the underlayment. So when you're talking about spending money, and this is just one situation, when you're talking about spending money and being preventive and proactive about it, the money that this system will cost will pay for itself.
What is the cost per year on this?
The annual cost is $10,000.
The initial cost, Ben, is $13,250. Any further discussion on this issue? I know that if you go on the internet, Lisa, right, all this information is on this ordinance. So ordinance number 22-2021, I recommend people that have any questions about it, go online, and there's almost a booklet of information on what exactly the services that will be provided. And I think when you look at the upgrade to the website, I think we can integrate the two together, which will be a very highly usable type of format, and it makes sense to upgrade at the same time. If there is no further discussion, order number, can I have a roll call, please, Lisa, on order number 22-2021?
Yes, Peter Draffo?
Yes.
Ben Twitchell?
Yes.
Jerry Clary?
Yes.
Joseph Gravel?
Yes.
Jeff West?
Yes.
Lee Trahan?
Yes.
Ray Karen?
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Moving on, order number 23-2021, providing for authorization for the town manager to sign a 3-year contract with AFSCME representing Winslow Public Works and Fire Department contract.
So moved.
Second.
Jeff, seconded by Rocky. Open for discussion. Peter?
Erica, if these contracts are adopted, what is the cost increase to the town yearly?
It's a big one on the first year. It's
Okay.
about $250,000 on the first year.
On the first year?
On the first year.
Okay.
After that, the costs are far less because we're looking at a 50-cent raise per year thereafter for cost of living for Public Works, a 40-cent per year raise on the fire side, and then if anyone gets a step increase in between there, that's a 3.5%. So the step increase is where you achieve after year 1, you go to step 2, after year 2, you go to step 3.
Okay.
So those could go up 3.5%, but the bulk of the increase is gonna be in year 1,
Okay, which we understood.
yes.
What does that calculate to in year 2 roughly, going on today's wages? Meaning on the upgraded wages?
On the upgraded wages. I will admit to not having that number directly in front of me, but I can absolutely get it for you,
Okay.
and I can publish that to anyone who wants it.
Okay.
But again, we'd be looking at 3.5% on the steps for anybody who hasn't achieved step 6, and that is the other thing. We brought people into the step system at where they should be based on the number of years they have on the job right now.
Okay.
So there are quite a few people who are already topped out, probably about somewhere between a third and a half of them are already topped out. The other thing that I felt was very important, and I just want to make clear for everybody, this was not about just giving people money. It's not, we had a pretty severe deficit in the fire department in particular, with wages with surrounding communities, and in fire in particular, we have to look a little bit broader than we would for some of our other jobs, because if you're working fire, as Rocky well knows, because he's done the job, and so has Jeff, you go into work and you may be there 2 days. So if you have to travel an hour to an hour and a half to get to your job, and then an hour and a half home, it's not as big a deal when you're doing it over a couple of days. So we are losing people. One of the 2 that we just lost went to Bangor, and the other one went to Gardner. Gardner's not that far, but Bangor's a bit of a hike, but the wages make it worth it for them.
That was gonna be my next question. With this increase, would we have lost those people?
I am fairly sure we would not have lost the one to Gardner, because the wage increase that he took was approximately what we're moving this up to.
Okay.
Bangor, potentially, because I didn't get up to their wage level yet. They're still higher than we are by a little bit. I think the bigger issue with them was that they also have increases at 6 months that bring the wages up further. But that's one of the reasons I wanted the step system in there, is so that people have somewhere to go year after year, rather than just the same person who's been here 5 years makes the same as somebody who just came in today, because there's only one flat wage.
Yeah, understood.
But I also wanted to make it contingent upon performance. We have not had any kind of formal performance evaluation system. I do plan on implementing that town-wide for all of our employees, but this is the contract that came up right now. So they do have to, in order to get that next step or to get their longevity bonus, they have to have a satisfactory performance review. And in the case of fire, they have to pass a physical test, which is not a work test. It's not, can you run up this ladder with a hose? It's a physical fitness test, which measures cardiac fitness. because that has been where it seems we've gotten into some trouble in the past with people who maybe weren't quite as fit to do the job as they should have been. And our goal in all of this is to make sure that those guys are safe doing the job. That's the primary thing. We do need to address some of our work comp issues. So, you know, that's, for me, I always feel like my loyalty is split between two things. One, I've got an obligation to the town to make sure that we are spending our money the best way possible, but I also have an obligation to the employees to make sure that they're safe and we're giving them the best tools to be safe.
Of course.
And sometimes that takes a little bit of an extra nudge in the right direction, if you will.
I, for one, don't have a problem with this increase. I'm afraid we still may be behind the 8 ball. Too low.
I believe in
I don't
long
believe-
terms, we could be. My biggest single position that I'm worried about would be the public works mechanic job, because we're competing with the private sector. The thought, you know, has always been, well, we can get somebody right out of trade school, but those guys are getting scooped up very, very quickly. And the position's in demand, and to compete with the private sector, we just aren't there.
Well, if Paul keeps hitting a brick wall with that, we'll have to address it. It just has to be addressed.
Well, we tried to address that once before,
Okay.
and it really didn't go anywhere, but there are ways we can get around it.
Well, we can't unring a bell. Whatever happened in the past happened in the past.
No, I'm just saying that there is a way around that.
But going forward, we have got to pay people what they are worth and what the trades are paying. The end.
Absolutely.
And, you know, the days of attempting to hire talent for non-talent wages isn't happening. Okay, so I don't have the figures in front of me. I left them behind, but do you know the total budgeted number for fire and public works that we talked about? And if you don't have it right in front of you.
Are you looking for what we did budget?
Yeah. Is this 250 gonna come into that, or are we gonna have to increase that?
We budgeted fine on public works side because we anticipated the increase.
Okay.
We're gonna be a little behind on the fire side because
Okay.
we only budgeted 2%.
Okay,
And they're gonna be the ones that get the biggest increases,
okay.
so.
That's
But I can
all.
get you exact numbers on that.
I'm also hearing we may be behind the 8 ball with the police department.
We very well may be, and their contract
I
doesn't
don't think
open
we-
again
I
until
don't think we-
2023.
I think we are.
I believe you're correct, given data from just our immediately surrounding towns are all paying more than we are at this point. And the other big issue in all public safety is the main PERS, the retirement plan that we offer. We offer a 50% plan. Public safety in general around the state, most places are offering the 2/3 plan. Now, again, my goal in this contract immediately was to try and address wages so we could address recruitment and retention with the people that we have. Particularly with recruitment, if we're recruiting young people, the retirement doesn't mean as much to them. But for keeping people here, we will need to address retirement as we go down the road.
Okay.
I think Jeff is 100% right. I said, if we find over the next year, before the contract's not, I think the days of having a contract and saying, oh, we don't have to worry about anything for 3 years is over. We need to address if the job market, we have a transportation system in the ambulance right now, and we owe it to the people to pay competitive wages so that we can keep the most highly qualified people and people in those jobs for longer periods of time. Well, they get to know the public, they get to know their, the patients out in the field and their faces out in the field. That's critical, not only on the fire, also equally so on the police, but equally so too on the public works is out there on a day-to-day basis. And they get to know a lot of the people, and they're, extremely valuable asset.
Absolutely.
To the town of Winslow on plowing our roads, fixing our roads, and making the town a safe place to be.
All three of those departments are some of the, well, they're probably the most, they come into the most contact with the public of just about anybody other than maybe the 3 ladies who work in the front office. That's who people see out on the road, and they are, in a very real sense, the ambassadors for the town. that's gonna be some people's very first and maybe only impression of who Town of Winslow employees are, is making those contacts. So I do believe it's important. I will say that I also told the union that if we were finding that we were, before the end of this 3 years, that we are still not competing, that I was willing to bring it to the council to reopen the contract. Again, it's all at your will as a council, but I wouldn't feel right not addressing issues as I see them come up and bringing them to your attention, because we can't afford to lose people.
Going forward, we have to be competitive and we have to be fair, and that hasn't happened. Time for that to happen.
Question?
Go ahead, Rocky.
How long has the mechanic's position been advertised now? And have we got any?
I don't know that we have gotten any. I'll let Paul address it. I know we haven't hired anyone, and we're more than 3 months out now.
We might want to address that.
Yeah.
What's that, Paul?
We haven't gotten any applications at this point. I keep making kind of joke. I'd like to get at least a bad one. I could say no, but we're not even getting those. So it's a very dry market out there right now. And I don't know if we can afford what they're paying out there. I mean, there's a lot of these mechanics positions are well over $30 an hour, but you have to try and get a little closer, right?
Paul, what are you offering, what is that job starting out at for wage? What are you advertising that at?
Well, that's why I was kind of waiting till we had the new contract so we could do a little bit better. The new contract, I believe, will be 1986 for the starting mechanic, which is they just call him a junior mechanic, but he's the mechanic behind the senior mechanic, which was 1891. There's about $1 an hour increase from what we had before, so it helps.
Thank you.
How much more would it be to go to the 2/3 pairs?
The difference, let me see if I've got that in here. I did download the sheet from them. We're gonna be at 11.3% on the plan we pay for right now, and I believe it's around 15. It was a significant bump when you add it on top of the wages, because of course the higher wages are gonna mean that
Right.
11% or such is more than it was.
Senior mechanic is what? Is that the senior mechanic position?
No, it would be the regular mechanic.
Regular mechanic?
Sorry.
So it's 1891, the first, as of 7/1. 22 would be 2036, and then,
I think the 1891 is.
right, and then 23 would be 2086.
But if they come with any qualifications, is there any chance that they could start higher than that, Paul?
That's something that you guys would have to decide, I guess. I mean, we follow the contract the way it's written. It's
You can
not a lot of.
offer to bring somebody who's got experience in at a different step. They don't have to start at step one. You do have the latitude as an employer to say that somebody's already got these qualifications and we can bring them in higher. They just don't have anywhere to go as far as longevity until they get to the next
Correct.
years.
But as
So
far as experience goes, then,
we can take that into account when we hire and offer them, we could say, well, we're gonna
because we
bring you
do
in
on the
at step
fire
5.
side, so I don't know why we couldn't.
Yes.
Except if you're hiring a mechanic, you can't pay him more than the senior mechanic you have in
No,
place, is that
definitely
correct?
not, definitely not.
Which is really only, in this case, $1 and somewhat a head.
That's why
I would
it's
think.
gonna be
That's
more than one
problematic.
position.
It's problematic in that sense.
You're gonna have to increase that one as well.
The 1891 is the current wage, by the way. It's going up to 1986, so just under $1. That's entry level, but again, it is still low, and it tops out at 2236 this year. Next year, we'll be looking at the entry level for mechanic will be 2086. So we'll be bringing them up gradually, but again. Had I known you all would be so favorable, I might have pushed it further, but I was pushing, I knew I was pushing a big increase, and we did, both the union and I wanted to be sure that we brought you all a package that wouldn't cause so much sticker shock that everyone would reject it.
But Erica, we're losing employees every day. Well, I'm exaggerating, but we're losing employees to other communities. We can't hire a mechanic. I mean, so we either come up with the times or privatize everything.
I will say, as far as what we do with this contract right now, it has been ratified unanimously by the union, which is unusual, but they chose to unanimously vote yes on these wages. If we were to go back and change the mechanic, I would have to bring it back to the union and open it up for a vote again. So not that that would be horrible, however, we are under a bit of a time crunch as well to get this done, because the wages are effective July 1, and I did plan to ask you all to waive the second reading tonight just because of the timing. I know that's not something we like to do, and I only do it in this case because we want to get as close to that July 1 date as we can to start paying them the new wages. As it is with the 30-day rule after you pass it, I'm still not going to be able to hit them on the first pay period. I'm going to have to give them the second pay period and pay retro back to July 1.
I think that we give Paul another month. We ratify the contract, you know, in the second reading, maybe tonight, and then we can always open it back up again in the future for if we can't find somebody.
I think we should have a discussion in the meantime to be ready for that to happen.
At least, where do we need to
That's
be?
right.
Where do we need to
Definitely.
be and how far we have to go out?
I'd like to see Paul bring some numbers back maybe so we could,
I kind of know his end of this business.
Yeah, I know
And
you
you are
do.
not going to find a mechanic that knows a half-inch wrench from a screwdriver for that kind of money. So.
Not that's gonna stick around.
Well, that's gonna stick around, correct. So, we can fool ourselves and say, let's wait, or we can discuss it right here. Do we have to go to the union if we
Yes, because
choose to
this is the
increase the
agreement that's
mechanic's
been
wage?
ratified. Because
Even
you
if you
have
wanna
to,
give somebody more money,
that
then
is
go to the
correct,
union?
because unless you are going to raise everybody else the same amount, you are favoring one position over the rest. So we need to be sensitive to that as well.
Well, why don't we ask Paul what his opinion is, because he's the one listening to this every day. Do you want us to talk about doing something with the increase in mechanics wage and going to the union now, or do you want to give it another 30, 45 days and see what surfaces?
Let's give it a little bit of time, let's give it another month or so.
Okay,
You know, the unemployment benefits are starting to expire. Many people, I know the governor is looking to maybe pay people to go back to work, from what I saw today.
okay.
And unfortunately, from what I've been talking to people in the industry, I mean, we got the guy up now, who right now is chipping out wood. He's out of Old Town. They can't hire a mechanic either. I'm sure they're paying decent money. It's one of those fields right now that people just don't want to do.
Yeah.
And for some reason, very difficult.
And by ratifying it, both readings tonight, we can put these raises in effect immediately.
Okay.
So to me, if we wait, then,
No.
you know, you're not just talking about the senior mechanic, but you're also affecting all the fire department and the public works department at the same time. So I think,
All right.
At that point, you'd land up with a morale problem.
oh, they're gonna get retroactive anyway, so.
go ahead,
Still,
Erica.
they wouldn't be.
Another point to hiring, we can advertise the pay range. We don't need to advertise the entry-level wage. We can say the pay is between, in this case for a mechanic, we can say the range is $19.86 per hour up to $22.36 per hour. I know 22 is still at the low end, but at least that range.
Would expect, okay,
So
all right.
How many
I'm good
steps?
with what Ray suggests, let's do that.
How many steps?
there are 6 total steps,
6 total steps.
yes.
You could do it that way, so that you got 6 steps, and starting at this and ending at that. Now, they yearly?
They are yearly.
Yeah.
The opportunity is yearly. If you were to fail your performance review, Public Works does not have a fitness component on theirs, but if you were to have an unsatisfactory performance review, you would be given 90 days to correct whatever issues came up in your performance review. Should you then become satisfactory, you get your step increase retroactive back to your anniversary date.
Okay.
If you did not bring it up at that point, then you would not get your increase. So it could be more than 1 year in between, but the expectation is that our employees are doing what they have to do on the job. And to be unsatisfactory would mean that you had chronic performance issues, which should have been addressed all along as it is.
Paul, as of right now, we have one mechanic. Are we right now farming out work of mechanic nature? Or what's the financial ramifications of one mechanic during the whole year versus two mechanics and the amount of work we have to subcontract out?
Right now, we haven't sent anything out unless, other than stuff that we can't handle in-house. I mean, I've got a truck that's been going out for air conditioning repairs, which is not something we do anyway. It's a quiet season. We had a quiet spring, so right now one mechanic has been able to keep up. But yes, you're right. If, obviously he wants vacation time. If he gets sick, then we tend to struggle a little bit and coming in the wintertime. If he's out for some reason or he's been up all night, then something needs to be repaired in the morning. We definitely need the second position. There's a reason for it, but we've gotten by. We haven't farmed out anything. It hasn't cost us a whole lot of money yet, but where we are right now.
Is there any other further discussion on this? So this is order number 23-2021. If there's no further discussion, Lisa, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Peter Drapo.
Yes.
Ben Twitchell.
Yes.
Jerry Quinion. Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
And Ray Karen.
Yes. Order number 24-2021. Whoops, go ahead.
That was for the first reading,
I
right?
make a motion that we take the second reading due to time constraints.
Yep.
Second?
Second. Any discussion on waiving the second reading? We'll vote on the second reading at this time. If there's no further discussion, Lisa, can we have the second vote on the second reading, 23-2021?
Peter Drapo.
Yes.
Ben Twitchell.
Yes.
Jerry Quinion.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Order number 24-2021, providing for authorization for the Public Works Director to replace 4 control panels at 4 pump stations at a cost not to exceed $50,000, with funds to be taken from capital sewer account.
So moved.
Second?
Jeff, seconded by Rocky. Discussion? I think, Erica, about potentially not having to use the capital sewer account money.
Right. So there's still a lot of, we're finally getting some clarity on the stimulus funding that's coming down. And where they had originally told us that capital expenditures that were deferred would all be acceptable uses, now they've narrowed capital down to some very specific parameters. So streets is not one of them, but sewer is. So this, both this order and the next one could potentially be picked up through stimulus funding, because sewer and water are specifically outlined in the stimulus package. So we might not even have to spend our regular town funding on that. We could spend the stimulus funding because these are unplanned. We had not planned on these 2 particular expenditures this year in advance as far as our budgeting went, so.
When are we
This is-
gonna know if we can use stimulus?
I am going to have to run every potential purchase through the reviews before we actually spend the money out of stimulus. Otherwise, we will be paying it back. I need to make sure when we go to spend money that it's not going to be something that the federal government comes back and says that was not improved use of your COVID funding. When they first proposed all of the stimulus funding, it was very broad, it was very open. The intent was to give towns and municipalities the leeway to spend monies to make up for shortfalls in our budget that we're experiencing due to COVID. They tightened up a lot of that when it came through the final voting. And we just had, it's only been about a week or so, well, 2 weeks now, that we've gotten any real guidance at all The state has still not opened up their portal. They have 30 days from the day that they got their money, and they actually got their money on Memorial Day. So the state has their funds. They have to stand up the portal and start passing the money down within 30 days of receipt. So within the next week or two, we should start having some more clear guidance. I do have other things that we can spend the money on as far as things that would help us. One of the things that it does allow for is for us to give premium pay to first responders. So as far as talking these union wages for this year, I could offset some of that with the stimulus funding because we are upping their wages for fire. So I think we'll still be able to spend it. We're just going to have to get a little creative about how we do it.
Where do you get these authorizations or reviews done? Is that on a state level or a federal level?
The state isn't really saying yes or no. They may give you a cursory look over. The Fed is really going to be the ones to have the final say about it. And they're treating it like grant money, so we will have to run it through the same portals that we would if we had a federal stimulus grant, or not stimulus grant, but a federal, for instance, any one of our federal road grants or federal safety grants. We're going to have to run it through those same systems.
Unless we choose to spend it on a boilerplate item.
Yes.
Okay.
So, but I think there are ways to justify how we're spending the monies and how we can tie them back to COVID response. A lot of the bill ended up being very focused on addressing underserved areas, meaning populations that are poor, that are largely minority, where there's a lot of disadvantage to begin with. And Winslow just doesn't happen to be one of those areas. There are census tracts, and I can't remember the exact name. There's a specific name for it, but there are census tracts within the U.S. that are kind of automatically given preference. And what we were told is that they will give those a cursory glance, but not much more. They aren't going to be asking for stringent backup documents and things like that. The rest of us, if we're not in one of those census tracts, they're going to be very nitpicky about it.
But I mean, at the end of the day, these next two orders, it's just a money shuffle at that point.
Yeah. Okay.
And money right now is available in the capital sewer accounts.
Yes.
We could spend it on other things, that's for sure.
No, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's just
Yeah,
a money
I know.
shuffle.
We're talking bonding for a lot of the Sunset Heights project in the future, so this is not, yeah. So, any other further discussion on 24-2021?
No.
If there's no further discussion, Lisa, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Peter Drappo.
Yes.
Ben Twitchell.
Yes.
Jerry Clarion.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Order number 25-2021, providing for authorization for the Public Works Director to perform complete survey of Sunset Heights development with funds not to exceed $75,000 be taken from the capital sewer account.
So moved.
Second.
Jeff, seconded by Rocky. Paul, are you still there?
I am.
Could you go over what exactly, this is just for engineering work, is that correct?
This is for the engineering, and this is something that I'm doing a little bit further research, that they came back and basically said they didn't have any money to do a complete survey. My understanding is it should have been in the original contract, so I'm gonna try to play a little hardball with them and get them to run this down. They were looking to hire a local surveyor, and obviously the surveyor is gonna do a good job. He's gonna pick up everything in those streets and every manhole, catch basin, and property pin and everything else, but there should be a lot of that information already available. But I didn't want to change the amount at this point, not knowing where we're gonna done. It's gotta get done, but hopefully it won't be quite this expensive.
We had, Erica, maybe I'm wrong, we had allocated some money for this survey prior to this. Was it 30-something or?
Not this one.
Not this particular one?
Not this particular project, no.
Okay, okay.
No, because we were under the impression that we may have a survey that would work. But upon further investigation, it was not going to be reliable, so the whole area needs to be resurveyed, so we don't run into issues like we have right now on Benton Avenue.
And who's doing the survey? Who's the
Right
engineer?
now, the proposal would be to hire Bob Knowlton. Most of you probably know Bob Knowlton. He's a local surveyor who does a lot of work for the town. He would do all the surveying and send it over to Wright Pierce so they could incorporate their design into it.
So the 75,000's for the surveying and Wright Pierce engineering work?
We've already signed a contract with Wright Pierce, and I can't remember what the amount was, but it was just shy of $150,000 to do all the engineering.
So this 75 is just for surveying?
That's correct. That's why I'm getting a little bit of heartburn with what we're being asked to pay, so.
You're getting heartburn from Wright Pierce?
No, I'm getting heartburn from my side that I think some of that should have already been included in the original design proposal. So I'm gonna try to push them a little bit to
Submitted by who, Paul?
Wright Pierce.
Okay, that's the point I was trying to make, okay. Thank
Right.
you.
But the 75,000 for the surveying, you feel that that's a competitive price for the amount of work to be done?
It is, they got another quote from another surveyor in their area, and it was up in the $65,000 range. This one was up just about the same amount of money. Part of this also covers up their markup, because whoever's working for them, they have to cover, their insurance, so there's a couple $4,000 in insurance liabilities to cover themselves, as like any contractor does. When you hire somebody, you have to cover their liability insurance, so.
So for Wright Pierce to do their work, we need Bob Knowlton to do the surveying so Wright Pierce can have accurate estimations and engineering diagrams?
Correct. But our assumption going in with Wright Pierce is that they had sufficient money in the original proposal to do most of the engineering. That's why it's causing a little bit of heartburn that they're coming back and asking for quite a large change order to keep the project going forward.
And how comfortable are you with this? Obviously, you've got some heartburn here. What's the town recourse to know that was where, the money, is it 75 exactly that Wright Pierce doesn't need anymore, or they need that additional money for the survey? What happens to the amount of money they had for the initial surveying within their contract? What happens to that?
Well, they only had about $5,000 in their original contract for survey work, which they should have been a little bit better prepared at the time. But I'm being careful when I say this, we're on the air. But, it sounds like they come in with a little bit with a low ball and then come back in for change orders to make up for what they're losing. Some contractors work that way too. They give you a little bit and come back in for a whole bunch of change orders to make up for it. Their shortfalls.
But this is maximum 75, right? Could be a lot less.
Yes, I mean, we have a firm price from Bob Wilson for his work, and he'll stand behind it. That I'm not worried about. But I am trying to get Wright Pierce to cover some of that out of their original contract. I'm having a discussion with them tomorrow. One of their engineers will be here tomorrow for the Benton Avenue project, and we're gonna have that discussion.
In order not to hold this up, let's approve this.
Okay.
We'll trust Paul to do the best he can.
I know you're working on it, Paul. I know you and Erica are working on this, and I know you'll get to the bottom of it and do what's the best thing here. And I'm sure both of you will keep us informed moving forward. But I think right now, if we're going to do any engineering, get any work up there, we need to at least approve initially tonight the money for the survey. Any other further discussion on 25-2021? If no further discussion, Lisa, can I have a roll call vote, please, on 25?
Yes, Peter Drappo?
Yes?
Ben Twitchell?
Yes.
Jerry
Yes.
Kurian? Joseph Bravo?
Yes.
Jeff West?
Yes.
Lee Trahan?
Yes.
Ray Karen?
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Resolution number 26-2, providing for acceptance of forfeiture assets obtained by the Kennebec County District Attorney's Office.
So moved.
Jeff, seconded by Lee. If there's no other further discussion on that, Lisa, can I have a roll call vote on 26 first?
This one will not require a roll call
Okay,
vote.
the resolution,
By
you're
hand.
right. All those in favor? All those opposed? Passes.
Thank you.
Resolution number 27-2000, providing for application for a restaurant, class 1, 2, 3, 4 liquor license by Asian Cafe, 53 Bay Street.
So moved.
Second.
So moved by Jerry, seconded by Jeff. Any discussion? No further discussion. Raise of hands, all those approve. Disapprove. Resolution number 28-2021, providing for authorization for the town manager to appropriate $900,000 from the sale of town property account to the streets and roads capital account to support road resurfacing project for the current construction season.
So moved.
Jeff,
Second.
seconded by Lee. Discussion? Any discussion? Hey, Paul, are you still on? Paul, yeah, could just really,
Yes.
just really briefly, just what that money is gonna be, it's from the sale of, Orion, right, Erica? So what exactly we're gonna be doing with that money over the next year?
The three main paving projects are complete the Bassett Road, which is ready for reclaiming, finish up the South Reynolds Road, and then the Benton Avenue contract for paving, which we'll be discussing here shortly.
Okay, okay. Any further discussion? If there's no further discussion, at least, that's a show of hands again for 900,000. So show of hands, all those approve, all those disapprove. Passes.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, sure.
We left the 300,000 in Paul's account, in Paul's budget for paving as well, correct?
We did.
Okay, thank you.
Resolution number 29-2021, providing for authorization for the Winslow Public Library to name their meeting room in honor of Betty Perry.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Discussion, Jerry, I think you have a letter
Yeah.
that somebody wrote for in
Okay, I
favor
got a
of
lot
Betty.
of that was given to me by Betty's daughter, Vicky, thanking you two. Okay, thanks to the members of the Winslow Town Council, the members of the Library Board of Trustees, and the staff of the Winslow Public Library. My mother would have been deeply honored by this dedication. And yes, I knew Betty very good. I used to do her lawn and her driveway in the winter. She was quite a person. And that'll be it on my part.
Yeah, thank you, Jerry. I think if anybody else has anything to say about Betty, I know I went to quite a few of the chairman board meetings that the library had, and I think in the end, I think the last time I went, she was, I believe, 100 years old. When I went, when we were sitting there talking to her before COVID now and stuff, and definitely her passion was at the Winslow Library, and very a lot of volunteerism there for Mrs. Perry. Any discussion? If there's no discussion, it's just a show of hands, those of you who approve. And then moving on to discussion items, and the Spirit of America Award recipient. Just to summarize, this is an award that's given out to anybody in or organizations in the town of Winslow that have supported or given a lot to the town of Winslow in either a volunteer or a contribution to the town of Winslow. So I think tonight we were looking for nominees or people that you feel would be honored. It doesn't have to be limited to one or two people, can be, I think, up to, I guess there's no really limit as to the number of people. So at this time, more than honored to take nominees, and a reason why you're nominating the person, Lee?
I suggest we go into an executive session to talk about this. Reason being is, do we want these people to know ahead of time? If it's supposed
Not
to be?
really.
We would
Well-
have to ask Bill if we, I'm not sure that this is eligible for an executive session.
I don't believe that it is.
I don't think it
Why?
is.
Anything we decide to be eligible is. That's a council decision,
No, it is not.
no?
No,
Well,
there are very specific rules about what can be discussed in executive session because all of our discussions in this forum are supposed to be public unless it's absolutely necessary for them to be private.
Go ahead, Lee.
Well, I was just gonna add to that, I mean, this is just, we're only at a discussion level and we're looking at collecting nominees.
That's correct.
So I mean, that could be, as far as I'm concerned, that should be public to let everyone know at least what the nominees are, and we make a decision at a final decision at a later time.
Okay.
What I might suggest, and this is just a suggestion for me, is that if the council wants to make some nominations, and then at the time, at sometime in the next week, we could forward it, what we feel, maybe what we feel with the nominees, first, whatever rank the nominees, and then send them to Erica. Erica, what do you feel about, like, how we would choose, or, you know, this type of...
I think that anyone who wants to make a nomination tonight should do so on the floor and give your reasons as to why that's a candidate that should be considered. Everybody should go back and mull that over for a while, and we don't need to wait for our selections. Again, and we don't have to narrow it down to one. I would say among the ones that we nominate tonight, whoever puts forth names, and I know we've already got the Winslow Community Cupboard nominated, but if it were me, I would be putting forth my nomination, giving you my reason why I believe that person or entity should be nominated, and making my case. And then I guess out of the ones that get nominated tonight, if you all could just rank what you think, you know, numbers 1 through 3, for example, these are my choices, or even privately, there's some reason I don't think that one of these should be considered. And those reasons should not be anything other than what the intent of the award is, as far as who we nominate or don't nominate, or vote for or don't vote for. So I would say just get those to me, and I can sort it all out and let you know what the consensus is at the time, and then you all can make a decision from there.
What's the council feel about that procedure?
Sounds good.
fine.
Seems good.
That seems good.
Got
And,
one question.
yeah,
Does that include people that have passed?
it could be.
Yeah.
I would say that, you know, that could be. Yeah, and I think, you know, the way we go about it is that, you know, today we nominate somebody, say why we're nominating them, and then, you know, it's gonna be a tough choice, because I think when you nominate somebody, they've all given a lot to the town of Winslow, so it's not some win or lose type situation. It's like, if you're nominated here, it's a very positive situation, and that you've done a lot in the minds of some of our councilors for that, and, you know what I mean, and what we decide in the future, I'm sure it'll be fine with all the nominees and stuff, so. Can't have, like, you know, 10 people with a spirit, because it diminishes the amount of the award. And it doesn't mean that if this year we nominate somebody, that next year we can't renominate somebody, so, you know what I mean? So sometimes it's not so much one person's better opinion than others, just that sometimes you have one person that you really feel should get it, and then some people might get it in the future, so. I'm open for nominations at this point in time.
I'd like to nominate Kenny Kirian.
Kenny Kirian, okay.
Kenny does so much for elderly, hospice. He's practically in every charitable organization involved somehow, and spends his every day doing something, volunteering his time, his car. I don't think there's anybody in this town that does more for the area than he does.
Yeah. And part of the, and I will say this is, part of it is it's in the not the application, but is for volunteerism, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And not so much for, and I don't want to limit the people, but not so much for like people that are getting paid to do good things
is
for
all
the town.
volunteer that
This
he
is
does.
kind of like a volunteerism type of thing where
And that's what he does.
nonprofit or something like that.
He
so-
doesn't get paid for anything.
Yeah.
And he
yeah,
spends a
yeah.
lot of money out of his own pocket to do a lot of this.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Kenny Carrion is the first one. Jerry, did you have one?
No, we're just asking.
Okay. Peter,
I'd like to nominate Scott Higgins,
Scott Higgins?
and I believe that's self-explanatory.
Okay, I think so too. I'd like to nominate Michael Hevener. Although I do understand that he was a paid employee, but he did a lot of volunteerism work on the side too, so I think, Jeff,
I'm good.
you good? Lee?
I nominated the
Winslow Cup
Winslow
Board.
Community Cover.
Okay. Any other further nominees?
Yeah, Betty
Okay.
Perry.
Betty Perry, okay.
And because she volunteered, not only at the library, but other places.
Okay, yeah, okay, great, yeah. I think that's a good list of nominees, and if anybody thinks of anybody different, so we've got those, Lisa, Erica or Lisa, could you read back those nominees to us?
I can, sure. Winslow Community Cupboard, Kenny Carrion, Scott Higgins, Michael Hevener, and Betty Perry.
No, good.
And did, Ben have a chance?
Oh, I don't know, Ben?
I'm all set, I agree.
Okay, thank you very much, Ben. Millennium Drive turning lane,
Yes. That's my put in.
okay?
Basically, right now, the project is at a standstill. Utilities have not been forthright in getting their work done. So it has just shut the project, and we got until September to spend that money, unless we get an extension. If
Cable put their strand up last week. They got the power supply hung the end of the week, right, Jeff?
I don't know, I haven't been there.
They were there. AAA was there, they hung that power supply, the entrance is up. I'm assuming they're gonna, within a week or two, have their part done.
Yeah, they gotta schedule a night cut over.
Okay, so cable will be done.
Well, at
with
that
it.
time, I didn't know that.
But
It wasn't
the-
done,
The phone company is where everybody's gonna be challenged.
right.
There's still a wire on my road on the ground from an accident that happened a month ago. And it's a 50 pair cable, it's not a house drop,
It's a
from the phone company.
copper cable.
I don't know how you're gonna motivate them.
So, after Jerry had come in and spoken to me about this issue, Paul reached out to Mr. Small over at MDOT, who is the utilities coordinator, and asked for his assistance in coordinating a meeting with the utilities. Now, Paul had specifically addressed this project, the Millennium Drive project, and I was copied on that email. I responded that I would like a broader meeting to include CMP and any other utilities that might be affected, because although this one's critical time-wise, that we do need to finish by September 1 or get an extension again on our grant, we have multiple projects around town that are affected by this exact issue. We're going to have one up here on Benton Avenue because there are existing poles that are no longer really needed because we've moved the poles, but we've still got utilities sitting on the poles, and they're in the middle of where our sidewalk is supposed to go. So, and according to Paul, we have multiple locations throughout the town where we have old utility poles that the conversion has just never been completed. So I have asked for a broader discussion to have utility coordination for all of these projects. My concern being that I don't want there to be a lot of finger pointing, such as, well, CMP never told us we could go ahead and work there, or Consolidated saying, well, Spectrum never told us they were done with their part. So that's my concern with not having, I'd like to get everybody around the table and come up with, everybody sitting there agrees, this is the procedure we're gonna follow when we have these projects. So Mr. Small has agreed to try and set that up for us. He's making the attempt at any rate. So if that happens, my intent was to invite Jerry and Peter. Jerry, because you know the MDOT side of it, and Peter, because you know the utility side of it. And I thought your input, both of you there at the table, would be helpful if we get this meeting.
No problem, I'd be happy to. On the Millennium Project, CMP's done, complete. Cable will be done, I'm assuming, what, Jeff, in 14 days?
Depends on the approvals.
Okay. So, again, Benton Avenue I haven't looked at, but I will. I didn't realize that was an issue there.
Well, in Benton, I don't know if Paul has left us, but I'm not sure which utilities are still on the pole there, if it's just Consolidated or if it's also Spectrum. I mean, Consolidated is definitely the one that drags their feet the most.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah,
So they
so,
have 3 line trucks.
the entire state,
It's,
yeah.
okay.
Yes, but, I mean, as a business, I would hope that if you don't have enough equipment or manpower to maintain your infrastructure, that you start contracting out to get it done. Maybe they should contact Spectrum and see if maybe they could work out a deal.
That ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, I can't say why they can't hire contractors on there.
Union rules might prohibit them.
You gotta pay them.
Looks like we might not solve that problem tonight.
At least we have
Looks
an
like
idea what's
that's,
happening.
I'd like to listen to it, but I can see something that's not going anyplace.
Right, no. it's-
Paul, do you have anything to add with Consolidated or anything you've heard? Obviously not, probably.
Not really. I mean, that's always been the thorn in our side with when we did Clinton Avenue the other year. It's just, you just can't get anybody from Consolidated to make a commitment and get the work done. They've got a high turnover rate in personnel. The person you talked to 6 months ago is not there anymore, and it's very frustrating. And I think something needs to be done probably on the state level to somebody needs to hold them accountable for swapping their assets over, but apparently there's no such thing.
Is there a safety issue? I mean, I travel that Augusta Road quite often. It's a little confusing when you get into that area with all the poles and the striping on the poles, but it's not what you consider a safety issue, or if something does happen there.
Not really. I mean, the poles are still where they were. We've got the same width of pavement as the original road was. It's just, that's why we put reflectors on them, because it's paved beyond the poles now, so we have to make sure that we safe, nobody was gonna hit them last winter, but you for sure would help. I'd say somebody needs to hit the pole and maybe they'll move, but they'll just replace it the same place anyway, so.
Yeah, and I think we're doing our due diligence, trying to organize it so that, you hate to say it, but in case something does happen, if somebody goes off the road and hits a pole up there, that's obviously not a very good situation.
Which pole's on Benton Avenue, Paul?
Over by the Scott Paper parking lots, the
Okay.
curve. They set new poles closer to the guardrails, but the old poles are still out, kind of almost on the gutter line.
Yep.
I'm not sure, I'd have to look tomorrow, I'm not sure if the Spectrum has relocated or not.
They have.
But definitely Consolidated hasn't, but CMP's been done there since this winter or spring, I think. It's been a while.
Paul,
Yes.
how much, okay, since Spectrum is trying to get their work done, and theirs isn't as bad as Consolidated, could consolidate and be not dragging their feet, but land up not clearing the area until the middle to the end of July, how would that affect our completion of that project?
I mean, we probably have about a week's work left on that project. There's some paving, some striping. I mean, it's minimal what's left. It's just the poles need to disappear. And if we don't get it done in a fair amount of time, right now, from what I hear, the contractor who has that project for us is not that busy this summer. They've had the opportunity to go back, but they can't go back till the poles are down.
Yep, yep. Any other discussion, any other questions? If there's no other questions, we can move on to discussion on the junior high building.
Basically, that's mine also.
Okay.
The discussion is, what do we have to do to be able to get decisions made by us on whether we're gonna remove the building, when can we expect those decisions, and are we gonna need to look at building a new rec building in that area?
Eric, could you open up the discussion? You've had some contact with Peter over the potential use of the building.
Yes.
For the next year.
So Peter came to me late last week and said that they will not need the junior high building, with the governor removing basically all of the restrictions in schools as well as businesses. So space is not going to be an issue for them come fall. That means the building will be empty. We know that that means we're gonna have to put some money into utilities if the building's there. Certainly not as much as heating the entire thing, but we need to keep a minimal amount of heat going and electricity and all that. So there will be some expense there that we had planned on the school picking up that won't be. I think where we left this is basically that we're at the environmental study. So maybe Peter, if you have an update on that, because I haven't, I would like to get back in the loop with the gentleman who's doing that study as well, because I thought we would have our preliminary by now.
I called him today, he answered. He was very honest. He says, I took it on, and I told you that I just can't drop everything to get right over there. He does plan on going back the end of next week. He's gonna be in Texas the beginning of the week on a project. He's telling me right now that we should have his study within 30 to 60 days. That's where that lies. I was wondering, did anybody ask Peter Thiboutot if he was willing to, or would even think about keeping it heated one more season? I mean, my thought process with this is what happens in December or November if the state decides there's a flare-up of another strain of this, and, you know, we've made the decision to pull the plug on it. I don't know if it would make sense, you know, I'm talking in circles right now, but would it make sense to keep it heated, or would it make more sense to drain it out and not have any heat in it? Again, we don't know any of this until we get that study done and get pricing from contractors as to what it would cost to drain the building out. I don't think shutting the water off and walking away from it is wise, because I've thought of something else going forward as well by using the new part of the building for a rec center. And again, I don't know until we do engineer. We really can't go forward, Jerry, until we have an economic survey and study done. And until that's done, an intelligent answer can't be given.
Now, the 30 to 60 days, Peter, is that for, because we had spent $3,500 for a preliminary investigation as to, you know, hey, this is just some records. Is this for that still the $3,500 for the preliminary? I know that we have not authorized the spending of the additional, I think it was $15,000 to $20,000 for a environment impact for the whole the whole thing, which portion of this is
The study.
the study, the
Which
whole
is-
entire study?
No, the survey is the entire document that we can present to a demolishing outfit
Yeah.
to get a price, okay? There's a study done, and then, once we have the study, we authorize the funds on the survey. Am I correct in that
I
terminology?
believe that's the way it went. So when you
Right.
say the study, we're talking about that preliminary
Correct.
$3,500 or $3,700 that it was,
That's
so.
gonna isolate basically what it's gonna take to do the survey. The survey would include test borings, samples of lead paint in the building, samples of putty, samples of lead in the glass, on and on and on.
So it's just more than, I'm just saying this to clarify everything. It's, when we originally talked, we thought it would be a quicker process, so we were thinking 2 weeks to get the initial study back, but that's pushed out longer, and that's already looking more like the time that we had initially said the survey might take, but that's because he's already overbooked.
This isn't going to happen in 2 weeks.
Right.
I doubt it's gonna happen in 2 months. But there was 5 years to deal with this and nobody
Yep.
did, okay? So going forward, I've been asked to help with this and I'll do the best I can. But at this point, I can't rush him because I've looked into other hymns and they aren't taking any work on until '23. So
Okay.
he more or less did us a favor by saying he would agree to do this. And he's been very apologetic. He answers his calls every time I call him, but I'm not gonna, certainly not gonna put him under the gun.
I completely understand that. I just wanted to, for everybody's clarity, you know, where we're,
Yeah,
Where we're
but again, has anybody asked Peter if he,
No, I have not.
okay, and I don't mind asking him, but,
I can approach him with that. I know he said that the COVID monies are dwindling with what they're having to do to get the schools back open under normal operations.
okay.
So I guess it would depend on what he's got remaining, but I can certainly open the conversation with him.
Well, again, it wouldn't, I don't believe it would cost as much as it's been costing if you kept the building at 50 degrees as opposed to 70 degrees.
Right, that was my thought as well, that it would just be a minimal level to
Right.
keep pipes.
But then
moving.
again, we might wanna make the decision to drain it down.
I think we have to look at, you know, the longer we keep that building up, because we haven't done maintenance on it for a long time. If there's a roof leak, if there's a furnace issue, so it's not just a minimal cost of keeping just the boiler running, it's also the
Yeah.
cost of, potential cost for keeping,
Right.
for repair of the facility.
You
So-
still have your contracts and all that, so.
Hmm?
You still have all your contracts
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
going on.
Well,
It may be more economical to go ahead and winterize that place.
That's what I'm thinking too, Ben, but let's wait and see. I mean, right now, we're not throwing any heat money at it, obviously. So I talked to him today, and I said, do you think I will have some sort of clarity or some sort of answers by the July meeting? And he said, absolutely. And that's Craig Wilson,
Okay.
okay? And again, I have to be careful. As those of you that know me, I have no patience, so it's against my personality to,
Yes, yeah, and I think that, you know, that, I think to do due diligence is, you know, obviously, I think probably at this point is, not to say that, but we need probably to have somewhat of a, maybe a backup plan. What do you think? Maybe investigate another avenue or another, what do you think? I mean,
another one.
just another, should we look at other environmental companies, or you think?
I did,
You did?
23,
Okay,
2023, before they'll take on any work, at least local ones.
yeah.
So I'm sure we could go out of state and pay somebody $1,000 an hour to come do it, but that isn't, I don't believe that's due diligence to the town.
But our backup plan basically just to winterize, you know?
Well, I've heard figures in the past, Ben, and I don't know how accurate they are, but it's between 30 and 50,000 to keep that open as far as just heat and utilities.
Right, I think the number I heard was 50,000, but that was at a more comfortable temperature, environmental temperature. So I don't know, I can't speak to that with any kind of authority as to what it would actually cost, even if we were just kind of operating on just barely enough to keep the building from,
I think if Peter says, no, absolutely not, I'm not gonna need it, don't want it, I think the wisest thing to do for us would be to look into winterizing it, but we have got till September to make that decision. September, October at least.
Yeah.
And by then we'll have more answers, but I can't imagine you can't winterize that building for $50,000, and if you, that's on the upper end. If you winterize it, it's a one-time expense until you tear it.
And I think Shelley could give us a lot more information on being able to do that.
Who's that now?
Shelley Phillips.
Shelley.
Oh, yes,
Shelley.
yeah. So, that's all I have for that.
Okay. Okay. Moving on to paving bids for Benton Avenue.
That's,
Who's open, who's with that?
Paul, are you?
That was
Yep.
my request to the council. I'm just trying to get some feeling. We're almost ready to put the paving out to bids. And the last one we did on our Benton Avenue, we didn't go out to bids. We negotiated with the contractor we wanted. We came out with a decent price. MDOT does not require us to go out to bids. They're happy with what we normally do with our normal procedure, where we either just send requests out to the known firms that we know are comfortable with, as opposed to just outright bids. Or we've actually gone and just like this year with the paving, Pike gave us honored last year's prices, so we didn't go out to bids. We just basically extended our price, and they would be interested in negotiating a contract for this one as well. I'm just trying to get some feeling of where the council sits, whether you're comfortable with that or you really want us to go out to open bids. That's why I'm asking you guys.
If we go out to open bids, how long would it take for them to come in and mobilize and to be able to start paving?
I think at this point in time, speaking to the guys at Pike last week, even if they negotiate, they can't start working on this till late summer, early fall, which is about the time that the contractor will be out of the way anyway. We know this work is going to be finished next year. I just need to award a contract this year so we don't lose our DOT money.
Paul, you don't, I tend to disagree with that, only about, I don't have an issue with paving that in September, October. I mean, we do surface up into November now.
Right, but it depends where we are in the process.
Okay.
I want to get some paving done this fall, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, okay.
But I don't want to start reclaiming it in September, and then we're into October, and we can't put surface on because it's too cold, and, you know, we're watching the thermometer, and we're starting to pave at 10 o'clock in the morning, and losing half a day, the days get short, you know, and then we wonder, are we getting a good product, or we're not, you know? We know we can't get it all done this year. That's not gonna happen.
No, but your binder could be put in.
Possibly, but we have to look at what happens with the utilities. If we have catch basins that are sticking out of the ground that we can't plow, or we have to raise them all up next year, then we're not saving a whole lot. I'd rather try to tackle something this fall that we know we can finish. You know, if we say we're gonna go from Danielson down to the tracks, get a reclaimed, paved surface, then we know that's finished, and we go on next spring and finish the rest.
Is Pike willing to take Benton Avenue on at last year's pricing?
I haven't gone that far with them. I've just broached the subject whether they'd be willing to negotiate, and they would be, obviously, because it's got to be a general contract, because it is earthwork, there's sidewalks to build, it's not strictly paving, and they're willing to do that. And probably most of the general contractors are as well. It's just sometimes when you go out to bids in this environment, you get contractors that come from a way that you may not be 100% familiar with, or they're trying to grow, and then we kick ourselves in the head later on, or maybe we should have not gone that way. And so I'm trying to get some guidance. I want to make sure the council's happy with it.
What's that?
I just soon stay with Pike, if they can give us a reasonable price.
I'm gonna excuse myself.
No, I understand that, but, I mean,
But
they're proven,
I strongly recommend you go with at least a contractor that is capable and has their own QC labs.
I think Jeff, after going through the Clinton Avenue project and the rework on that, I think that, I think Pike I think that with their engineers, and I'm not saying, I'm not trying to say anything bad about any other company, but the proven record of going in there and Benton Avenue is such a high traffic area that we need to have it right.
Well, I mean, and also in good faith, they gave us last year's prices this year
Yeah.
as well
Yeah.
for the work we wanted done. I say we approach that.
I do too.
And we have the option, guys, that, if we negotiate a price and we're not happy that we think we're being taken advantage of, we can always turn around and put it out the bids. We're not obligated.
They're not gonna do that.
It gives us a starting point anyway,
They wouldn't dare give a price that wasn't fair.
Yeah. Okay. You got a direction that you need, you and Erica at this point?
Yeah, if you
Okay.
guys are comfortable with that, I was gonna meet with them this week and start laying out the project, and as soon as the plans are ready, we'll give them a set of plans. and-
Tell them we have more next year.
Yeah, true. Thank you.
price for another year.
Nice to have you. We got a lot of paving experts on the council now, that's for sure, between Peter, Jerry, and Jeff, that's for sure. Moving on to comprehensive plan meetings, Erica?
Okay, so our first of two comprehensive plan public hearings is this Wednesday. It will be 7 PM. I haven't gotten any feedback from KV-COG on how many people have actually registered, but I have been refreshing the post on Facebook continually to try and get it up towards the top of our feed so that people are aware of it. It's also on our webpage under the events. So I'm really not sure what to expect. As far as what I've seen on the Facebook post, I think we had 10 interested and 3 were definitely going. So hopefully it's more than that, just because you want to get a
10
sampling.
interested communities?
No, 10 interested individuals, because this is the opportunity for our residents and our businesses to make their comments on the comprehensive plan.
Well, the comprehensive plan for the town of Winslow should be put together by us.
It is, but the public hearing still has to happen, and KV-COG is the entity that has been coordinating, that we contracted to manage the entire process. So they're conducting the public hearing. Ray and I will be present for questions. But the comprehensive plan, yes, we develop it on our end. The public still has their opportunity to give their input.
Okay.
So, yeah, so that's what this is. And there will be a second meeting the following week on the 22nd. These are Zoom meetings because at the time that they were scheduled, we were still, it was prior to the governor lifting all of these restrictions. So we basically decided to operate as kind of the same way that the state agencies are doing their public hearings, which is to solicit people to register ahead of time, sign up for the Zoom link, and then come in by Zoom to make their comments. So, like I said, I'm not sure exactly what we'll get, but Ray and I will be there for the meetings for sure. Anyone is welcome to attend.
Everybody got an invite,
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Yeah, we're not really, I would say, Eric, we're not, the council, including myself and Erica, we're not an active part, we're not soliciting like, hey, we want this or we want that. It's pretty much run by KV-CAP.
KV-COG.
And it's
KV-COG.
KV-COG, I'm sorry. And it's obviously non-binding.
Right.
But it's something that if you apply for grants, if you want federal money, you have to have an updated comprehensive plan in your system. So this is I'm not saying it's a formality, I'm not saying it's not useful, but it is a necessity moving forward, but it's definitely non-binding. And it gives an opportunity for citizens to, and this is that portion of it. So it's very general and very broad in nature.
Yes. And it's not, as Ray said, it's not binding. It is a guideline for us to follow. It is not a mandate that whatever we put in that plan has to be accomplished or There are things that we cannot do because they're not in the comprehensive plan, et cetera. It's a guideline. Now, I wasn't involved in the development and the surveys that went out. I kind of have come in at the tail end of this, so I don't know all of the steps that were taken previously, but I know there was a community survey done where people did respond to the things that were important to them for what they saw going forward with the town. And there was a lot of work put in trying to develop that. But again, there's actually preset questions for the public hearing. Things like, what is the most important thing to you about living in Winslow? So people can kind of answer those questions. But it's like an a la carte menu. People can choose things that they want to off of that, or they can come up with something completely different. The questions are designed to just start conversation. So,
I remember the funding, we got matching funding for the Fort Halifax Park. In my recollection, part of that application process was, do you have a comprehensive plan, and does your comprehensive plan take in regard for recreational space? Yes, that's one of our goals is that. So it's part of a lot of grant applications is to have an updated comprehensive plan.
Okay.
So, and a lot of the work was done a year and a half ago leading up, and then I think we had well, if I remember right, we actually had the scheduled meetings at the auditorium that was scheduled in like a week before we had all those a year and a half ago. Everything got shut down, so we had done a lot of work. This is kind of like, I know it's hard to pick up a piece a year and a half later and say this is this end piece here, but this is what it's kind of a year and a half now. We're trying to finish that process that we had started and the survey started. Would it be possible, Erica, to send out the survey results of the survey to the councilors?
I can get Joel Greenwood to.
Okay, and maybe that would be, as some of the, maybe that would give a little explanation of what we're doing. Any other further on the comprehensive plan meeting? And like I said, the meeting is tomorrow night at 6.
No, Wednesday night.
Wednesday,
At
I'm
8.
sorry.
I'm sorry, 7.
7.
7.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. Wednesday night, 7
I'm
p.m.
not supposed to be there.
It's sometime this week at some time.
Yes. And then the
Yeah,
next
I'm
one's the
gonna
next
be
week
there.
is sometime.
Early or late.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Hold
Sounds
on,
good. Wait a minute.
no.
Any
I've got a few
other,
Yes.
any other further comments before we adjourn tonight?
I just have one question for Erica. Where do we stand with Joel and either laptops or tablets?
It's hard to get equipment right now. So I have, when he got back from his mandated vacation, he did start picking up on that again. So
Okay.
it's still on my front page that it's stuff I want to get done. The smaller laptops are really hard to come by right now. Yeah, I agree.
They're non-existent.
Exactly. They're really, because schools everywhere are using the smaller notebook style laptops. So, and ones when you get up to this size are, we're talking quite a bit more money, but it is still, we're still trying to get there, so everybody has one.
That's all I have.
Lee?
I just had one question regarding the food recycle program. Do you have any numbers for the first month?
No, they don't actually weigh them. What they're doing is dumping however many carts we have. So what we're going to try and do, and I have to get with Paul on how we're going to do this, is limit, so we have 4 bins out there right now, but people can dump into any one of them, and AgriCycle suggested that we number them and say fill up number 1 first, number 2. I don't think people will follow that, so we're going to try to just put 2 of them out there, and then when they're full, we'll put the other 2 out and try to manage that. Again, I've got to work this out with Paul, and surprise, Paul, I have to talk to you about this. But we know what a full bin is. The problem is right now we've only got anecdotal evidence that all 4 bins are getting filled, but we don't know if it's a partial fill, full, how much it is.
I thought in their presentation they said they weigh them.
Yes.
That's how they were gonna charge us, right?
Correct.
Yes.
That's how we
So-
were gonna gauge how much money we were saving.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not charging, charging is a fixed rate.
The charging's a fixed rate, so we needed to figure out how much we're doing, and they're not actually, they're not weighing them. So we need to figure out a better way to do that, which is probably gonna be limiting the number of bins that are available at one time, so we can be more confident that we're actually filling them. So,
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Peter.
I just want to bring you all up to speed. Ben called a couple weeks ago and asked about putting some American flags up on Bay Street and the bridge, and I took the bull by the horns and got a hold of some flags, checked with Erica. To date, we've got 35 more, we put 4 flags on the Sebasticook River Bridge. Today, we put 2 flags and 3 buntings on the gazebo. I don't know if you guys noticed it.
it looks great.
And we have 35 more flags to go up on Bay Street. We're hoping to go up the Augusta Road a bit, and up China Road a little bit, and up Benton Avenue a little bit. I've got to coordinate with CMP, who has gracefully offered to put the brackets up and hang the flags. To date, we've spent about $1,550 on these flags.
You get the hangers.
We got the hangers, yeah?
Yep.
Got them Saturday. So that's where that lies.
Thank you, Peter, for
Thank
that
you,
work. That's very nice,
No
yeah.
problem.
And one of the things too, I just want to thank is there's a lot of counselors that behind the scenes are doing a lot of work. And I'd like to thank all the counselors for their effort. And Erica, I know that you have, your plate is about as full as any
I don't
plate
do
could be.
anything, I just,
And with
I
these
know that.
flags,
We are making some progress in a lot of different areas that in the next 6 months are gonna really bear a lot of fruit.
These-
I think those are very important things.
these should last a good 5 years. And there's a citizen that's been helping us, and you got right with Ben on it, was Dale Macklin, who has put a lot of work in this and is continuing to. One more question for the council. The junior high building committee, is that abolished now? Is that done for, or?
We don't generate any garbage.
I would
We generate
assume,
grass and branches and I compost.
I don't believe that it's officially dissolved
There's
yet.
nothing we-
I don't think.
but is that a council
I gotta,
resolution that would have to be?
Like I said, we don't have any garbage.
Because I had asked for that to be put on the agenda.
and it was part of that discussion item because there was
Yeah,
some
I don't have any garbage.
questions about, whether that should go that way or not. So that's why, that was part of what should have been in that junior high item.
Okay.
Jerry asked for his reasons for the junior high, but then when Lisa and I were talking, we were like, well, let's just put it on as junior high building and we can discuss all of it. So it would seem at this point that, yes, there's no further work for the junior high building committee to do. So my only concern with committees going forward, and I do think maybe we do a little bit too much by committee, but certain things it's appropriate, particularly when we need to have stakeholder input on those things. My only concern with dissolving this committee is I don't want it to appear as though the town is acting unilaterally and not taking into account committees that we have put out there to try and help us make decisions. But again, I think we know where we're at on the junior high at this point, and we know what the direction is, where we have to go on this. So I'm not sure that the committee would have anything left to add at this point. So,
I think like the if I might, I think like the cemetery committee is that, you know, that's a good clearing ground for things that, if something comes in of concern, we bring it to the cemetery committee, they give us a recommendation. I think it's up to the council when we get input as to whether we want to give it to a committee or not give it to a committee. That's us. If we want to handle the issue, we can handle the issues ourselves, make decisions ourselves. But obviously, a committee is useful in a lot of ways, is that if we decide as a council that these are issues that, could you vet these issues and come back to us with a recommendation? We don't have the non-binding, obviously, so, you know, if the council feels that, hey, I can't see any way that we would have issues that we would bring to a committee, then we could dissolve the committee. But at this point in time, I think that we could keep it just not active, but there, and dissolve it in the future
I
if we
think
wanted to.
going forward, the council is more than capable of making any decisions to do with this building. So I would like to make a motion, or take a straw poll vote, however we have to do this. I'm putting it out there, I would like to dissolve that committee.
I think we would have to make a resolution at the next meeting that would come up for dissolving of that committee. Is that correct?
That is correct.
My personal opinion on this matter is the committee was put together, the committee did what they were asked to do. From here on out, it's either negotiations with an entity, or we sit here around a table and say, yeah, we're gonna take it down. So the committee at this point really, there's no reason for.
And I would tend to agree. However, I know that the committee membership doesn't really feel like they ever got to make their recommendation, because the only recommendation was for a preliminary agreement, which in their mind was supposed to be an agreement to agree. So they feel like they didn't ever get to get the final data, like we were talking about with the environmental study, to make a recommendation whether we actually tear it down or if we,
How many years was this committee together?
5?
Okay. And in 5 years, nobody came up with the idea that it might come down? Or we could repurpose the new
No,
part?
certainly it's been discussed, all of that, but they never made their final recommendation, so.
I would like that resolution put on the next agenda, please.
To me, when that purchase and sale was put in front of us, that was their agreement. That's what they came to. Because that never would have got to us without that committee. Just my personal opinion.
We can put a resolution together and have it at the next meeting, and we can
Thank
have a discussion at the next meeting
Yep.
on what we feel we need, and we'll have a vote.
Sure.
Whether this is all or not, and that's part
Yep.
of the process here.
Right.
Sounds great.
I don't think we ever voted on creating that committee.
Oh, yes, we did.
Oh, yeah, no question. That committee hasn't been going for 5 years either. That committee was at after the actual building committee got done,
Right, so it's been like 3 years.
2 years.
Two
I
to
think.
3
2
years.
years since, said, what are we gonna, now that, we did it, it's been going on for about 2 years, I would say. And the COVID,
Shut it down.
I might have lost 6 months or 9 months there of the actual, because of the COVID situation, so. And we never met, well, we met some during COVID, but not a lot, so a lot of it is stuff. So, we'll have that at the next meeting.
With your permission, Ronnie has something to add.
Yep, Ron, go ahead.
Yes, sir, I appreciate it. I know we're running late, but through the chair, I just would like to get confirmation from Mr. Twitchell, if he could follow up with the person that brought the bill to his attention, that it was in fact a bill from Winslow Fire and Rescue and not from another entity.
Yeah, there were 2 different ones, Ronnie, and I'll get all of those people and I have them call you.
That'd be great. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Mr. Chairman, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ron. Any other further questions? If there's no further discussion or question, I would
Make a motion
entertain a
to
motion to adjourn. Jerry, did you make a motion to adjourn? Could I have a second?
Second.
Jeff West, second. I don't think I need a roll call vote, do I? Show of hands, all those? We are adjourned. Thank you.